Well, every blessing to you all, and welcome back to another video looking at subliminal symbols. The chap to the left of the photograph is the late Clarence Darrow, and the guy to the right of the photograph is the late William Jennings Bryan. A couple of heavyweights that came together at the turn of the 20th century to oppose one another concerning the infamous Scopes monkey trial. The guy on the left was a top-notch lawyer slash atheist slash Darwinist slash communist. The guy on the right was a Protestant politician, a three-time presidential candidate. And as I say, these two came together to defend a teacher and to prosecute a teacher. The teacher in question took it upon himself to teach evolution in his classroom, which in America, in Tennessee, at the turn of the last century was illegal. And therefore this renegade teacher, this maverick teacher, broke the law, and as such was fired and later put before a court. Hence why Darrow on the left was called upon to defend him, and Bryan on the right was called to prosecute him. These guys were big guns, and therefore when they arrived in Tennessee it was quite a show. But look at the fan which is in Bryan's left hand. It's blank, it's plain. And it's important that you notice that, because as I jump to another browser, I want to spend a few moments looking at a scene from a movie.
Now listen to this. This is Genesis 4-16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife. Now, where the hell did she come from?
Let me just stop there. It actually jumped ahead of me. This scene is called Inherit the Wind, or this scene I should say is from a movie called Inherit the Wind, made in 1960. And the guy who just opened this scene, of course, is the late Spencer Tracy, an American Catholic, who's playing Clarence Darrow. And he's putting a question to Jennings Bryan about the Book of Genesis. So just a bit of background to what you've just heard, and as I say, it slightly jumped ahead of me. But Tracy will play the parts of Darrow, and this chap, an American actor whose name escapes me, will play the parts of Jennings Bryan. And the question has been put to him about who would be Cain's wife.
Oh, Mrs. Cain. Cain's wife. If in the beginning there were just Cain and Abel and Adam and Eve, where did this extra woman come from? Did you ever stop to think about it?
Just want to stop again and say this, that what's happened at this particular point of the movie, and I suggest you watch it if you can, is Darrow has somewhat ambushed him, and he's got Jennings Bryan to take the stand, which wasn't necessary. You see, the teacher broke the law. It's an open and shut case, really. The teacher broke the law, was fired for teaching evolution in the schools, haven't times changed, and therefore to put this guy on the stand, who offered himself as a expert on the Bible, was really unnecessary. And yet Darrow has somewhat, how can I put it, got one over on him. But the question's a very simple question, and for some reason the director of the movie, a guy called Kramer, wants to portray Jennings Bryan in a negative light, which is pretty typical of these types of movies.
No, sir. I leave the agnostics to hunt for her.
Here's a teacher in question, incidentally, who was fired and prosecuted, like I say, for breaking the law. Now today, if a teacher decided to teach creation in his or her school, he would be, or she would be, disciplined, perhaps fired. I doubt it would go to court, but even if it did go to court, you wouldn't get someone like Darrow representing you, because of course he is very much on the other side. So I have very little sympathy with this teacher. Fired, prosecuted, and also found guilty at the end of the movie and in real life for breaking the law. He was fined for breaking the law, which I don't think he paid. I think his defence team under Darrow went on to appeal his conviction, and it was later overturned. Times were changing. To the left of him is the late Gene Kelly, another American Catholic who plays a very nasty piece of work. And I guess if you live in the UK, he would be the equivalent to probably Jon Snow from Channel 4 News, or Jeremy Paxman, the former Newsnight TV presenter. And it's very interesting to me when I listen to American Catholics, or I watch American Catholics playing such antagonistic parts. You've just heard Spencer Tracy mention the H word, being hell, of course. Hell is a real place, and therefore I find it somewhat disturbing when people who offer themselves as Christians, as being a part of the one true church, quote unquote, can use the word hell in such a loose way. And I'll come back to Spencer Tracy in a moment, but here Gene Kelly, an American Catholic, plays a part of a very hostile journalist. A lot of foolish jesting in the movie. And it's interesting to me to see Kelly and Tracy playing such parts. And I just mute the volume, because if you were to pay me £1 million to play someone like Clarence Darrow, I wouldn't be interested. You couldn't pay me all the money in the world to play such a hostile character, attacking the word of God, making Christians look somewhat stupid. But Spencer Tracy, in his day, was a very well-known actor, very popular actor, and was a very tortured man. In fact, the more I watch this scene, the more I can hear some of the effects of his tortured life. I should just back up and say that Tracy was a Roman Catholic, like I say, and yet he had a very troubled life. For many years he was involved with Katharine Hepburn. They had a long-time adulterous affair. Both were married, and during their long-term adulterous affair, Tracy and his wife had a child, and the child was born deaf. And he blamed himself for that. He thought it was a judgment of God on him for bringing a child into the world that was deaf. And it was such a problem for him that he turned to the bottle. And the more I watch this scene, and the more I listen to this scene, the more I am convinced that he's drunk during this particular scene. And you say to me, but how could he be drunk and put it off? Well, some of the best actors over the last 100 years have been awful alcoholics, like Richard Burton. And they're able to play characters such as this very convincingly because they are professionals. So I do feel sorry for Spencer Tracy to some extent, because as a tortured Catholic, turning to the bottle to find comfort demonstrates to me that his faith failed him. Let's just keep playing this scene, because I want you to look at the
Goes into a lot of begats.
prop, or the fan,
And Afrixad begat Sailor.
that Brian is fanning himself with. It's a hot day, you see. It's Tennessee, it's the summertime, there's no air conditioning.
They are the generation, the holy men and women.
Now, do you remember the first shot that I showed you? It was blank, plain. And yet when we get to this scene from the movie based on the Scopes Monkey trial, which is a real story based on real events, you see that it's got compliments, Masons, funeral parlour. Now, what are the Freemasons doing in this movie? What is the point of having that on a fan in a movie which, from the original photograph that I showed you at the beginning of this clip, was blank? Could be artistic liberty, could be artistic license, could be more sinister. I don't know if this man was a Freemason in real life. I haven't researched him. But I'm more concerned about why directors once again are wanting to use such disturbing props, symbols, subliminal symbols, questionable symbols in movies. It shows me that they have an agenda.
Colonel Brady?
In what spirit is this question asked?
I just want to back up to the question he puts to him. Listen to
What
this.
do you think of sex, Colonel Brady?
In what spirit is this question asked?
I'm not asking you what you think of sex as a father, or as a husband, or even as a presidential candidate. You're up here as an expert on
You see, he's slurring his words, isn't he? He's drunk. He's a great actor, or he was a great actor, but he's drunk.
the Bible. What is the biblical evaluation of sex?
It is considered original sin.
Now that's incorrect. And I should just say this, that this is very much a throwback to the Catholic view on original sin. And they get that from the serpent apparently having sex with Eve, which I've already spoken about in a previous video, which is incorrect. Also going back to his first question, look at his face, absolute contempt. He asked Jennings Bryan to explain who Cain's wife was, and of course his wife was his sister, because Genesis covers a 2,000-year period. Adam and Eve had many children, and yet to watch this scene you would have thought that such a simple question was impossible to answer, rendering this guy somewhat of a buffoon, rendering the biblical view somewhat of a joke.
And all these holy people got themselves begat through original sin?
Look at his facial expression, absolute contempt, absolute horror. But go back to what I said to you. He's a Catholic. He would offer himself as a Christian. He would offer himself as being a part of the one true church. And yet he's almost ridiculing Jennings Bryan.
Well, all that
For
sin and make them any less holy?
Your Honor, where
holding to the word of God.
What has it got to do with the state versus Bertram case?
Absolutely, good question. It has nothing to do with the case in hand. The teacher was a lawbreaker, prosecuted for being a lawbreaker, found guilty of being a lawbreaker. And there it is again. Compliments, Masons, funeral parlour. And incidentally, a lot of Freemasons are heavily involved with the funeral business. So I just killed the audio because I think you've heard enough to get the gist of what I'm trying to get across. But once again, the powers that be that make movies such as this are very good at portraying Christians as imbeciles, as buffoons, completely detached from reality. And I'll just go back to that scene with Gene Kelly just a few months ago. Another well-known actor, dancer, and singer to some extent. Just trying to find the still. It's somewhat tricky filming and jumping from browser to browser. But I think it's important that as an ex-Catholic, I speak about such people. Now, Gene Kelly, just to close with this, was an American Catholic, as was Spencer Tracy, and we found out quite recently that Gene Kelly was a supporter of the IRA. He gave money to Sinn Féin IRA, which allowed the IRA to buy weapons to kill British soldiers, and they were able to purchase their weapons via Libya, thanks to Colonel Gaddafi. Because the IRA are a Catholic group, and most American Catholics, if the truth be known, hate Britain. And they are very pro the IRA, or have been pro the IRA. And therefore he thought nothing of raising money for the IRA, giving money to the IRA Sinn Féin to kill British soldiers, kill Northern Ireland men and women, and also people on the mainland. So I think you've got the gist of what I'm trying to get across in this message. Yes, a good actor, a tortured man, an alcoholic, and yet thought nothing of playing Clarence Darrow, a hostile atheist turned lawyer, and would clash with this particular chap, offering himself as a Christian. And also to say that because Darrow was an unsaved man, as was Spencer Tracy, the Holy Bible, which he's holding, King James incidentally, is a closed book to him. He can't understand it because he's dead in his sins, he's unsaved, unregenerated. But why he was unable to answer that question from Genesis about Cain's wife, I don't know. And why he thought that sex was original sin, I don't know either. But of course, you know how these people think and operate. They want to portray such individuals as idiots, imbeciles. And there is Jennings Bryan's wife. She has quite a big part to play in this film too. But I've slightly gone over time, so I'm going to close it there and maybe return to some more of these short clips. The Lord bless you all, and Maranatha.